Hey folks, Maniac here. A little less set up than I usually am, but I'm here. I think I'm ready now. Getting my keyboard and stuff together. This way I can make sure that I'm ready to communicate on the chat. If anybody wants to communicate on the chat, you're more than welcome to. So, let's see. Where do we want to begin today? It is Monday, Maniac Monday. I'm going to continue to do my live streams every Monday at 7:30 local time to Rhode Island. But today is going to be the last one for the current setup of mental health. We'll come back to mental health down the line, but for right now, this is the last one in this series, 3-part. I thought would be perfectly set up. So I just want to say hello to everyone and welcome back for the third mental health live stream. I'm Alex the Maniac. If you don't know me by now, you're going to learn a whole bunch about me right now. And but I'm a former pro wrestler. I've done stuff involved in paranormal investigations, film, acting, writing. If it's entertainment related, I love it. Today we're going to be diving into a topic that many of us struggle with, which is dealing with loss, trauma, and the fight to keep going. Whether you're tuning in for the first time or you've been here with me from the start, I'm glad that you're here today. And if you're not watching live and you're watching this after, I'm still here. Glad that you're tuning in. And I hope that you sit through, and it's going to be about a half-hour video. That's about what we do for the lives, and I'm going to continue doing that. But yeah, I hope that this stream brings you some comfort and guidance. That's the main goal with doing these, is sharing my own experiences and talking about things like that. I'd like to start by just talking about understanding what loss and trauma really entail. So what they are, loss can come in many forms, whether it's the death of a loved one, the end of a relationship, losing a job, or even just losing part of yourself. And I think we've all been there, right? Along the way at times. Trauma, on the other hand, is the emotional response to a deeply depressing, distressing, disturbing event. It can leave us feeling overwhelmed, anxious, and even numb. I've got my couch in the format that's got the little cup holders here, so if you see me dipping to the side to get a drink, that's all. So feeling anxious, numb feeling, these are all things that can happen, and trauma can rear its head years and years after the fact, even when you think you've gotten over that trauma and dealt with that trauma. It's important, I think, to recognize that everyone's experience with loss and trauma differently. There's no right or wrong way to feel, and your journey is unique to you. However you feel, however you move through it. But I think the importance is to acknowledge it and to move through it, to look at what's causing these pains or struggles, and to find your coping mechanisms, what works for you, and realize that you're not alone. And it's important to really keep up on that one, that you're not alone. And I think, we're just a couple minutes in, and we've got a nice long half hour here. And I think what's important now is that I'd like to share some personal stories with you, and get into some of that. And I don't know if you noticed, and I talked about this in my last video, that sometimes when I'm talking about tough subjects, I smile. And you might be like, well, why are you smiling if it's a depressing thing or a sad thing or angry thing or whatever? But I tend to smile as part of my coping mechanisms when I'm uncomfortable or whatnot. And I smile a lot, so I just smile in general, I guess I've been told. But no, seriously, it's all part of it. And I just want to make sure that you understand that going forward, that like if I'm talking about something that you're going, why is he smiling at a time that seems very inappropriate? That's part of why it's not because I don't feel the feels there. It's because I am feeling the feels sometimes. So with that on the table, um, these are the hard parts when we really start talking about things that maybe we don't talk about much and or aren't easy to talk about, or maybe that we haven't even acknowledged in years. And so I'm going to go through a couple different things, talking about both loss and trauma. And I'm not going to get into every little loss or trauma moment in my life, but I'm going to talk about some key ones. And it's like I said, this isn't going to be the last mental health video I do. It's just going to be the last one I do for a little while. So there'll be content to save, and I've been through my ups and downs through my life. So believe me, there's plenty more where this comes from. Just want to say thanks to everybody that is here. And thank you, Jeremiah, for saying hey, acknowledging that you're there as well. Um, Definitely people feel free to talk in the chat room. That's fine as well. You're invited to. Okay, so personal experiences that I'd like to talk about. And I'm sorry if my typing is incorrect because I'm like trying to type quickly while looking and talking. So, you know, my answers may not be the best, but you're welcome to talk about yourself amongst yourselves, and I'll chime in if I see a comment, or if you want me to talk about something specific, I'll try and get to that as well. Um, for me, loss has been a big thing throughout my life. I've lost so many people when I was younger, losing my grandparents. All of my grandparents passed away um fairly early in my life. It felt like, I guess. I mean, both of my grandparents on my mother's side, while I was still school age, my grandfather was, I want to say it was like 93, 94 that he passed, and my grandmother was about 97, 98 maybe. I want to say might have been 98. And those were hard times and hard situations to go through because for the first one with my grandfather, it was like I was young. I didn't completely get it, but I got it at the same time, and I was, feeling those things. And I didn't go to the funeral. I don't know if I was exactly allowed to. That's a whole thing I'm not even going to get into right now. And I don't think I would have been ready to, and I don't think that's the memory that I wanted to have last. On the flip side, I went to the funeral for my grandmother on my mom's side, and both grandparents. I was a little older when my grandparents on my dad's side went, and I went to all those. And you know what? And I'm gonna say this 1,000 times over to people that talk to me about it. I wish I hadn't. I really do. I wish I hadn't. It's not because I don't care. It's not because I didn't want to be show my support or remembering them, but I didn't want to remember them in that way. And I think that's my problem with funerals and stuff. It's like I have a very tough time understanding. I get the purpose of it for some people. I get that, it's a way to get together and share your final memories and say your last goodbyes. And I get that. I don't want that to be my last memory of somebody, looking at them in a casket. I mean, that's not the memory I want in my mind. I want my memory of them to be them alive and the good times. And yeah, you can still go back to those even if you've been to the funeral. For me, it's a little more difficult, but I can. And both my dad and my mom had health problems. My dad since a very young age, and I think all along it was kind of like there was that knowing that I was probably gonna lose my dad at a young age because well, a young age for him in the grand scheme of things, he passed away at 50. That's young, you know? And my mother at 49, and I think that was a little less expected. Well, it wasn't less expected at the time, but growing up wise, I wouldn't have suspected it as much because, you know, but my mom developed MS. And when you have a family member that is struggling with a health problem, a debilitating one, she had an aggressive, progressive form of MS, it can really be hard to cope with and deal and know how to act, react, feel. I had, and I hate to say this, but it's the truth. I had a very hard time seeing her as she progressively got worse because I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to act. I didn't know how to react, and I felt bad, and I wanted to be there, but at the same time, I didn't know how to be there. Um, I didn't have the skills, the ability to emotionally help. I didn't know what to do, and that's still bothers me now looking back that I wasn't there as much as I should have been or could have been because emotionally I couldn't. I just couldn't. Um, it wasn't in me at the time. Uh, other things, that I've lost along the way is, friends. I've lost so many friends that shouldn't shouldn't have gone as early as they did. Hold on a second now. Um, I mean, it started as early as high school. I lost some people, and soon thereafter, I lost some more. Um, a very close friend and almost was like a family member to me. Dennis, he wrestled as Hellspawn and as Scum. He performed mostly during the backyard years before we went pro. I want to say only one video of him during the pro years, the very, very first season. Um, and he went overseas in the military and didn't come home. And I think I might have talked about that in my first mental health video. And I wasn't able to go to his funeral, and there's a whole nother story there. But I miss him, man. I do. And I had a lot going on in my life at the time that he passed, and it just compounded things. And another friend of mine passed away. I mentioned this for sure in my first mental health video. He took his own life, and I remember when I found out about it, I ended up going for a walk that day. And I don't know if I've shared this very much with people, anybody. I went for a walk that day, trying to just process it, trying to think myself through it. Having dealt with self harm and trying to, or thinking about and trying to do that myself at different points in my life prior to that, running through my head, going, why? And then I've had this why question, like there's been, and I'll share these in later videos about how I've had these near death experiences so many times in my life, not intentional ones, and I've lived through them. And I've had other things happen in my life. I 100% wanted to go to the station the night of that fire. What if I had? I didn't, I really wanted to see that group, and we last minute made a decision not to because of money. So there's that guilt there. Like, what if I'd been there? Shouldn't I? Should I have been one of the ones to? And So here I was facing that again with a friend who ended their life way earlier than they should have because they had so much promise and so much heart, and they were such a good person. And yeah, they had their demons, and we all do, but it was a shame to see them go so soon, so early in their life. And so I went for a walk, and I went to Jenks Park in Central Falls, and there's a tower in Jenks Park, and I went up the backside of the tower, and that's a place that on more than one occasion, going through some of my darkest times earlier in my life, I'd went there and thought about what it would be like, or if I should just take that step off. So to go there, and it was not purposeful. There was no thought behind it. It was kind of subconscious that I walked there, and to sit up on the tower where I'd contemplated it myself while thinking about the loss of my friend. And I sat down on the steps, and I just shook my head and I went, "Why? Why did I feel that way in the past?" I mean, I know the situations that caused it, I get that, but why go there, right? And then why did I go to that place at this time? I wasn't thinking about doing anything. And I had a conversation, let's say, with my friend AJ, the one that was gone. And when I say a conversation, I don't mean person to person, obviously. He was gone. But I spoke to him, and only Lord knows, and He knows, I guess, whether or not the spirits and whatnot hear us when we talk to them. Those who have gone that we cared about. But I talked to him that day, and I said, I want to see you again someday, man, but not now. I can't. You know, I had my son, I had things to live for, and I was facing some really tough times, and I knew that I was going to go through a long period of some very tough times, but I also knew that I had to stand through those times and push forward, and I did, and it wasn't easy. And it doesn't mean that I never had no thoughts of self-harm or anything like that ever again, but it was so tough that going through that situation, and loss for everybody is different, like I said. And I was lucky to have family and friends and people to talk to and surround myself with, and the wrestling community. We really embraced each other and talked about it because he was part of that community, and I think that's really part of it. Let's see. Oh, we're way further along than I thought we'd be on time, and I'm sharing this big long story. Um, I went through some trauma, and I want to talk about trauma for just a second. I know I got to keep this going, and can't just keep going into about my own personal stories because that's not the whole purpose of this video. But I've had some really serious trauma in my youth and in my life, and I'm not going to get into all the details about it right now. Maybe some other time if I'm ready to really talk in a public forum about it. And I'm not sure how I want to talk about it too, is part of why I'm going to be careful about how I talk about this. But I went through one very, very traumatic event that did lead me to that tower that one time. It was in junior high. I stayed out at somebody's house, and it was a bad experience, and that's all I'm gonna say about it right now. But it it made me have trust issues. It made me have trust in myself issues. It had all these different things, and like I said, we all deal with it in our own ways, but it doesn't mean that you're ever completely healed of it, but you learn how to cope and you learn how to accept it. But you have to first acknowledge it. And I think it took me a long time to really acknowledge it. Other than that specific day, I kind of blocked it out for a long time, and that was what it was. But I think that this is a perfect time now to move forward and start talking about um, coping strategies. I mean, that's a big thing. We can't just talk about the negatives without talking about how to move forward and how to be better. So I want to talk about some coping strategies that can help us navigate through loss and trauma. Okay. Let me come over here. I'm working on this here. So, number one, acknowledging your feelings. It's okay to feel sad. It's okay to be angry or confused. You got to allow yourself to experience those emotions without judgment of yourself, without worrying about what others are going to think. It's important to acknowledge it though. Acknowledge the feelings, acknowledge what you're going through. Accept that you've went through that you faced that loss, that you faced that trauma. Because you can't fix it, you can't work on it, you can't get better from it if you don't acknowledge it. If you just stuff it down, you're not going to ever get anywhere with it. Seek support. Don't be afraid to reach out to your friends, your family, a mental health professional. Talking about your feelings can be incredibly healing. It can be freeing. It can let things out of you. And again, stuffing things down will not fix anything. And you may be like, well, I've done it for this long. I've done it my whole life. That's what I know. I don't talk about my feelings. I don't do this. I don't do that. It's not okay for me to, you got to stop that right there, because it's important that you do. And as much as you may have been okay, or maybe you feel like you're okay for a very, very long time, let me tell you something, bottling things up eventually, that container inside you that is holding all that, it's going to crack, it's going to burst, it's going to break into 1,000 little shards that are going to go all stabby, stabby all through you. And it's going to be messy. It's better to, yeah, acknowledging something hurts. Going through facing it hurts. But you gotta rip that, wound open and get in there and find what is stabbing at you and pull it out. Otherwise, it's only gonna get worse and it's gonna get infected and ooky and nasty. You've got to open it up, pull the shards of crap out of you, and start healing from them. So talk about it, acknowledge it, and talk about it. The third step in what we're going to talk about is practicing self care. Take time for activities that nurture your mind, your body, and your soul. This could be anything from reading a book, going for a walk, or practicing meditation. Do something for you that helps you. Find whatever that is, whether it's listening to music or writing music, or do stuff that makes you feel good. And do it because it makes you feel good. And take the time to acknowledge that you deserve to feel good. You deserve to be happy. I'm sorry, there's a little bit of a feedback I keep hearing in my mic. So I want to be heard, but I don't want it to be go and making all that ear noise. So working on the setup here. Sorry. Set small goals for yourself. Sometimes the idea of moving forward can feel overwhelming. Set a small, achievable goal to help regain a sense of control and to progress, to feel like you're moving forward. Don't set big, huge, unrealistic goals. Don't jump through these hoops of I've got to do this and it's all going to be better overnight. But set little goals for yourself. Little what's next. Trying to get to the thing on the screen. Create a routine for yourself. Establishing a daily routine can provide structure and normalcy during turbulent times. When the world feels like it's upside down, sometimes we need to just take a minute and go, I'm okay. Let me focus on what I can focus on. Having some kind of rhythm to my life, work, play, and watch a movie or TV shows during this part of the day. I'm going to do this. I'm going to get up. I'm going to move around. I'm not just going to sit here and mope on it. I'm going to do something with my time constructively and create that routine. So even if you feel like shit and you're like, man, I don't want to do anything, sometimes it's okay to kick yourself in the ass and say, no, man, get up, do something, and express yourself. That's the sixth step. I'm only going to do six steps, okay? Whether through writing, art, or talking, find ways to express your emotions. This can be a very powerful release. It's something to let that energy out of you and in a way that feels right to you. Maybe it's through singing, maybe it's through writing, maybe it's through art, but express yourself and let those expressions sing out for you. Don't be afraid of what people are going to think because it's not about that. It's about what you're feeling and how you're releasing what you're feeling. So be there in that moment and do it. Go find these things that you really want to do to let these feelings out because it's okay to share and to share in your own special way. Um, there's an importance in resilience. Okay, resilience being the ability to bounce back from a difficult experience. It's not about being unaffected by the trauma, but about finding ways to adapt and to grow. Building resilience involves maintaining a positive outlook. Focus on the aspects of your life that you can control and work towards having a hopeful future. The future that you want to have, not the future that anybody else wants you to have or anything like that. Cultivating strong relationships. Surround yourself with people who support and uplift you. Taking care of your physical health. Exercise, eat well, get enough sleep. Your physical health is so closely tied to your emotional well being. If you're not physically healthy, you're going to feel like shit. If you feel like shit already, your mental health's not going to do any better. You got to take care of yourself. You got to get up, shave, clean, whatever you got to do. Take care of yourself. I'd love to hear from you guys. If you have any questions, if you want to share your own experiences, feel free to leave a comment after the video is over. I think the comments kind of wipe, but you feel free to leave a comment fresh on the video on the page after the fact, and that those comments I believe stay. Um, but let's support each other through this journey that we all have. Um, I want to thank you all for joining me today. This is the last mental health video that I'm going to do for a little while. Next week, we're going to have a different topic entirely that's not connected to mental health. And I encourage you to join as well for that. And we're going to take some positive direction for the next couple of weeks and do some uplifting, good, feel good stuff. Remember, healing from loss and trauma takes time. And it's okay to seek help along the way. Okay? It really is. Don't feel like you got to do this alone because you're not alone. And together, we can embrace resilience and find the strength to keep going. If you found this stream helpful, please like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss out on the next one. Take care of yourselves. I love you all from the bottom of my heart. This is Maniac, and I will see you soon. I love you all.